Are you ready for the bog? Can you handle the bog? Can you smell what the bog is cooking? Well, they're here to bring you some new age death metal, and it is death metal-y. Oh yeah. What's up, everyone? It's your boy Matt Diazable coming at you with some new music reviews. Thank you for coming on by. I appreciate it. You're the best. So today I am checking out the latest release from Sanguisugabogg, and that is Hideous Aftermath. Sanguisugabogg is a death metal band based out of Columbus, Ohio, and have been a band since about 2019. This is their third release so far in terms of full-length albums. I reviewed their last album from a couple of years ago, Homicidal Ecstasy. I'll put a link of that down below. I've seen these guys play before. They bring the energy. They're like the new wave of American death metal with their mix of hardcore and death metal elements. And these guys are just heavy and unhinged. And just like this artwork, that just proves how deep they are into this death metal thing. And they're not stopping anytime soon. They're touring like crazy, putting out good work. These guys, they're doing it up and they're doing numbers. What can I say? And I would say a band like Sanguisugabogg, there's something deeply satisfying with the band that doesn't really, shave off their rough edges and just kind of lean more into that. I feel like this latest album from them, Hideous Aftermath, is like a celebration of ugliness. It's a record that really leans into filth, groove, and just the sheer joy of being repulsive. It's not a reinvention, but it's definitely, a refinement to their form. And this Ohio-based death metal crew sounds just overall tighter, heavier, and more confident in just ways that are just really nasty that you can't comprehend. I feel like Homicidal Ecstasy was just, a brute force of death metal mayhem, while, Hideous Aftermath feels like, a wound that's been carefully stitched together and then just ripped apart again. And this album just, playfully goes between chaos and just massive control in a great way. Like on the song Rotted Entanglement, where, the riffs and the double kips really snap together, and it almost feels like it's just surgical in terms of how precise and well executed the band sounds here. Overall, I gotta say, the band's chemistry is probably the most locked in with this record. And there's a moment where everything just really locks in on this particular song. The bass is kind of like humming in the low end and everything, while the drums are just snapping at the right moments. And you can tell that they're not just making heavy breakdowns anymore. Everything feels very deliberate and, building on tension. And so that real push-pull between heavy and tight moments really just permeates this whole record. Songs like, Felony Abuse and Ritual feel less about shock value, even though the names are quite shocking themselves, but they really have a good rhythm and patience to them. They play with the space on these particular tracks, and so they remind you of some of the best doom and sludge bands out there, but with Sanguisugabogg's own little twanginess to it. So on these particular tracks, they're letting the slow parts really hang heavy and just breathe. And that's a lot of what was missing, I think, from a lot of Sanguisugabogg's earlier work. The songs never really felt like they were breathing, but here they just feel more alive and just more paced out. But that's not saying they don't have speed on this record, because they do speed things up here once in a while. And when they do, it's twice as hard. The grooves are very violent now, and the grooves quite addictive. And all the guest spots on this record, from DeMontel Harris, Todd Jones, Josh Welsham, and even Travis Ryan himself, they don't feel like gimmicks. They all feel like different faces from the same nightmare. Yeah, they're different vocalists, but they're adding their own spin to the Sanguisugabogg style, and so it really gives it a nice variation. And so with each feature, there's like a new layer of texture being added here, whether it's from higher screams or lower gutturals. What's most impressive is how Sanguisugabogg is able to just seamlessly just add them to their world and never really skip a beat. Abhorrent Contraption feels like, a very particular fever dream, because it has a bit of a mid-tempo crawl to it before it just spirals into something that is just like ungodly, like heavy, and it just feels like the world is just collapsing in on you. And there's even a few moments of experimentation here, particularly on the song Repulsive Demise, because it has a very cold, industrial, and overall unsettling feeling to it. Here, they're kind of dropping the, the meat grinding chugginess of their, bread and butter style of death metal and, building some kind of really dark, eerie atmosphere. It's eerie, it's patient, and it's right in the middle of the whole album. So it's just a perfect like sonic palette cleanser. And even on the song Sanctified Defilement, they throw in some like new metal style tension here to really sneak in some melody and some dissonant style playing in the mix. And I gotta say, like, they are, switching things up a lot on this album, and it really sounds good. And so in these quiet like moments, this willingness to be, a little bit weirder than what they're normally known for, it kind of makes Hideous Aftermath kind of stand out a bit more. And I guess what really ties this record all together is, the intent here. It really feels like and sounds like a band that really knows exactly who they want to be now. It's mean, it's groovy, and just so unpretentious. And so it surprisingly hits in a very smart way. Every breakdown feels well earned. Every slow burn feels very deliberate and filled with intent. So by the time we roll around to the 7-minute long Paid in Flesh that is featuring Dylan Walker of Full of Hell, it feels very well earned with his very tortured screams. And it just feels like we are, not in a finale of a record, but just descending into pure madness. It's like the record is digging deeper and deeper into just like how they can just sound so rotten and just disgusting. So I gotta say, if Homicidal Ecstasy is the band finding their footing, Hideous Aftermath is just them cementing it even further. It's disgusting, it's deliberate, and it's darkly satisfying. So you get a record that feels brutal, but also weirdly comfortable at the same time. And so overall, I gotta say, everything on here just hits harder. The drums in particular are massive and are just so fast, and the double kicks on here, killer. They're doing a great job. The riffs, chuggier, denser, nastier. The vocals from the guest vocalist and Devin himself have a lot of variety. The crunch of the whole album, the thick bass playing, it all just works really well as good as like old death metal, while also being like new age death metal that I feel like is like slowly coming up in the world. So this latest album from Sanguisugabogg, you don't just listen to it, you sink into it and just let it take you over. So I gotta say, Hideous Aftermath, this latest album from Sanguisugabogg, it's a good and decent 9 out of 10. Links down below. Tell me what you think about this album. And like always, guys, see you in the pit.